Hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Monday, the 8th day of May, 2023. Let's see. I've started this a couple of times. I've got everything out here, and I'm going to keep it. The only thing I talked about, I said what the cards were, but I didn't talk about them yet. But I did talk about the runes. But I'm not going, I've got them all out here, and I've already got the stuff going on in my head about the runes, so I'm just going to leave it as it is, and instead of pulling them in front of you here. That was 2 videos ago. Anyway, well, sometimes that happens, it just does. I woke up dreaming, and I don't know about you, but sometimes when you wake up dreaming, it's hard to get it together for a while. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I was doing pretty well there, but maybe I'm not all there yet. I'm still in the dream state. But anyway, for the runes today, for those of you who've never been here before, what I do is I draw 2 runes, one from the Elder Futhark and one from Geomancy. The one from the Elder Futhark is the higher self rune, and the Geomancy one would be the ego one, the ego side of things. Or personality side of things. Geomancy is basically related to magnetism and earth energies. So you would see geomancy, other forms of geomancy would be the working with ley lines, also pendulums. Anything though that's earth based. Is like that, and a divination tool could be considered geomancy, probably. But geomancy runes have been around for a very long time, and there's technically 8 of them, but because there's a complement, there's actually 16. And so last Monday we had Perthro and Pur, which is scattered little boy energy. Today we have Perthro and Puella, which is Pur's complement, and it's scattered little girl energy. I mean, it's a little more complex than that, but that's essentially, you get the idea when you think a little boy that's running around with no impulse control. I had 2 boys, so I know. And little girls, I was a Puella because I stop and I look at everything, and drives my husband crazy. If we're heading back out to one of the greenhouses, it's gonna take me a while because I'm going to see things I need to harvest, and I'm gonna stop for a moment and pick some really nice dandelion leaf or something that I see. Yesterday it was some plantain. Plantain takes a little bit to start growing here. It doesn't grow in April. It's usually more Mayish when it starts. And I found one that was doing pretty well, and I took a few leaves off of it. Found a couple of them. And so, but all that has to happen before I can finally get out to where I'm going. And so that's kind of a Puella type of experience where your focus is scattered, but you're happy and you're fortunate and all of things. It might be a little superficial, but that's okay. It's just, think of a little girl, like my granddaughter is a Puella. She can be very focused, but at the same time, man, she's interested in everything. And so it's kind of cool. So, but the whole idea behind the 2 runes then today, to read them together, who's going to control your fate? Is your focus going to control it? Are you going to allow your focus to shift a whole bunch, and then maybe you don't get to where you're going in time? So that's one way to look at it. But I think that it's the idea of also, one thing I said, I think the first go around here when I did this, victimology and victimhood is an issue, I think, here as well, where you might feel like you're not really accepting responsibility for what's going on in your life. It's too easy to blame other people. And so the superficial side of Puella might be that, where it's like, well, it's not me. I mean, the flowers are here. I have to look at them, so there's no choice involved. When in fact, Perthro really, it's really asking you, are you responsible for your own choices? Are you somebody that's going to take responsibility, or are you going to give it away to everything else? It's like, well, I'm not really, it's because of the weather that I'm late to work. Well, no, you made a choice not to leave early. I think I said this one time recently in a reading. I had a coworker that was like that. You know, we get some dicey weather in the winter here, and she was probably either 30 or 45 minutes. I think it was 45 minutes late to work. I was early because, you know, I lived in Alaska when I was a kid. I understand this sort of thing. You have to leave early and allow for additional travel time because of the roads, you know, if they're not, you know, sanded or what have you, you know. And her attitude was, well, you know, I couldn't help it. I mean, I went out there and I saw what I saw. I said, well, you didn't look before you, I mean, I don't know. I see things differently than that woman did, I guess. But anyway, it's the idea of who controlled her fate. Well, she did. She just chose not to. She chose to give it away. Oh, I'm helpless, you know. So today I think we'll just talk though about this being, are you going to let your focus keep you from doing what you need to do? And are you going to take responsibility for that? Or are you just going to, you know, blame circumstances? You could look at it that way. And then, so that's going to be the overarching theme, the significator for the reading. Now that may change depending on how we start to read these cards, but I have 2 from the major arcana and 1 from the court. I have the High Priestess, the Tower. Both of those are from the major arcana. High Priestess is a 2 numerology. Let's see, the Tower is card 16, so that would be a 7 numerology. So 2 and 7 is 9. There's no, and only reason why I'm doing the numerology for these 2 is because I can't do it for this one. There's no number associated with the court. If there was, he would be a 14. 11, 12. Yeah, he'd be a 14, so that would be a 5 numerology. Again, freedom versus restriction, protection, change, momentum. Those are five key. Those are keywords for 5 numerology, but it doesn't have it, so we don't generally look at that way. But I think what I want to do, sometimes when I have a tarot reading where I've got major arcana cards, I kind of use them as the significators, but I don't think I'm going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the High Priestess and the Tower in the order I drew them, but I'm going to start with the King of Swords. Swords is the air element, and so you're looking at the mental faculties, you're looking at intelligence, communication, interaction. Remember, we're still in Mercury retrograde. I think it's till the 14th. Is that when it goes out? It doesn't matter, but anyway, I think that's when it's up. But right now we're still in Mercury retrograde, so how he interacts, this person of authority, with people, you know, could have some real significant consequences if he doesn't, you know, get it right. You see the airy butterflies all over his the back of his throne. You see the maiden and the crone, although it starts with crone and then maiden, of the full moon, if you will. When you look at maiden, mother, and crone, if you're not familiar with that, it's going to look like this. Its sigil will look like this. Of course, I don't draw very well. It's going to look like that. But that's what the, and that's in a sense what's going on here, only it's enclosing the butterfly. It's kind of backwards there and enclosing the butterfly. You see clouds in the background. They're kind of billowy around him, and they are up here, but there's not a whole lot. So he doesn't, when you also see 2 ravens. I always term them as ravens, the 2 birds, but I say they're ravens. Hugin and Munin. They were thought and memory. Those were the Odin's ravens that he would send out, assuming they were actual birds and not something technology oriented. But here he's sitting on his throne, and but here's the thing. He's holding his sword askew. It's pointing to our left, but to his right. It's the power of the spoken word, the power of the mind, the power of reason. But it's not straight up and down. So is he going to be completely truthful with you? Difficult to know. If this is about you, and this is about a male person or someone in authority. I mean, I tend to be pretty loose when I read the court cards, because I look at them as even though you've got the king and the queen, it doesn't necessarily have to remain gender specific, at least not in my estimation. Some women have more masculine projective energy in them than feminine or receptive, and men are the same way. So, but we'll just say that this is a man. Maybe there's a person in authority that maybe isn't being quite as honest as they need to be with you. The fact, if you look at the let me see if I can find it real quick. If you look at the Queen of Swords, this is someone who takes no prisoners. But you look at her sword, and it's straight up and down. She demands honesty. Oh, there's the Queen of Cups. She demands honesty from you, but she's also going to give it back. She's not somebody that's going to lie. She's going to demand that from people. And she's also going to demand it from herself. Let's see if I can find. Of course, it'll be like way at the end, but it's very similar to Lady Justice. You can see her sword is straight up and down. But with the men, they either don't look you in the eye. Oh, here we go. They either don't look you in the eye when they're telling you something, or they're like looking around and hoping you don't notice. But here, see, you see the Queen of Swords. She's got her sword straight up and down. And basically what she's saying is I'm offering some advice to you, but I need you to be honest with me, and I'm going to be honest with you. The king, not so much. He might be looking at you, but you wonder, is he crossing his fingers behind his back? He's not. But at the same time, that sword's not straight up and down either. So unfortunately, with the king, although he's analytical, he's an authority figure, older man, powerful, logical, clever. He would be a supervisor. He's the boss. At the same time, they're not always honest. And so there could be a little bit of dishonesty here today. And maybe it's something related to Perthro, where that dishonesty is trying to control your fate. And so it's very, very important not to take your eye off the ball today if you're dealing with somebody who is trying to maybe... It's like a salesperson who will tell you all this stuff, and it turns out half of it's not even remotely true, right? It's like, oh, if you buy this, it'll be this and this and this, or this is the price. And then when you get the bill, it's like not the price at all, right? And it doesn't do what they said it would do, and all of that. So they're trying to get you to believe something. But what is belief? Belief is the air element. And so you could have somebody in authority today who, with the clouds, we can read these as deceptive. Maybe the foundation or framework of what he's saying is not particularly honest. And you're not really sure if you can believe him. We go on to the High Priestess. Now, these are the pillars of Solomon that she sits between. You see Maiden, Mother, and Crone, like what I showed you here. And you see that as her crown. Behind her is actually the Kabbalistic tree of life. There's actually 10 of these behind her in the pattern. You can look it up. I used to have something in here, but I don't think it's in here now. Is it? No. So I can show you what that looks like, and it's cool because it has all the tarot correspondences are on it as well. It's very, very cool, but I don't see it in here real handy, so it must be out there by my chair. But she's basically the subconscious side of self. She's intuition, she's compassion, she's the subconscious or unconscious side of self. But again, she sits between the pillars of Solomon. Boaz and Yakim, I believe they're pronounced, but if not, I'm sorry. Like I said, I don't know. But anyway, here you have the maiden moon. And I think the reason why you have the maiden side of things here is because and I've talked about this before, the first 3 cards of the tarot are the Fool, the Magician, and the High Priestess. So the Fool takes the leap of faith, trusting the process that when the Fool does so, it's going to leap down into form, with the soul merging with the physical body. so that the soul can then get on with things, right, and learn about life in tangible form. But with the magician, see, he's responsible for the tangible world, the body, all of that. But then the high priestess is it's almost like she's the soul that's infusing into the body that the magician creates, that in conjunction with the fool is taking that leap of faith into. But together, those two cards make it possible, really, for the fool to exist, in form at least. And so she's the subconscious side of self. You see this X that's on her gown. You're going to see it with, is it the angel Gabriel's horn, where you see the cross on the flag? But what you're talking about there, you're talking about the balance. She's about balance. Two is balance. The being between the pillars of dark and light. The masculine and feminine presence within, or the projective and receptive presence within. I think sometimes people hear masculine and feminine, they get caught up in gender, and that's not the case. But here's how I see that cross. I see the cross as spirit up here, form down here. I think we live probably mostly here, but ideally the high priestess is suggesting we live right here, with the feminine and masculine side of self. That would be the horizontal line. After you've come through the abyss and come into form, again, this is the vertical axis that process takes. And then when you get here, you need to be in balance with so that you live life in a way where it's the soul driving the ship instead of the ego doing the reaction. And again, with Perthro and Puella here, again, who's going to control your fate? You can look at it in terms, is spirit going to control it, or is ego going to control it? And all too often, as we know, the reactive ego does. But in terms of the high priestess and the king of swords and who's going to control your fate here, you need to be using your intuition. If you sense that somebody is being dishonest with you, someone who's maybe in a position of authority, or somebody who's trying to sell you something or define something for you, you have to understand his motive. You have to understand whether you have to keep your focus strong, and you cannot allow your focus to scatter with Puella here. This is a happy type of a scattered focus. You think little girl, but in an adult, it's not. It's something where you're not paying attention to the things you need to be paying attention to. And in this case, who is going to try and control the outcome for you? And you want to make sure that that's you. That if you are in fact going to go buy something, I use that example of a salesman. If you're going to buy something, you need to be informed before you get there as to what it is you're looking for, and look at the reviews. And if someone's trying to sell you something because they're just trying to move it and get rid of it out of the store, well, you need to take a step back and wait, maybe. But again, intuition is going to be a valuable tool, and the high priestess is going to help you with that. She's saying you need to be paying close attention to the underlying energies that's coming off that person, so that you know whether or not they're telling you the truth or not. And there's always going to be people that are going to lie so well that you're going to get caught, and you're not going to know until it's too late, basically. And I would venture to guess we've all been there, and we know how that feels. And it's just like, well, geez, because if you don't, then I think you have something transformative that could happen, that can really shift things. So I think this is probably kind of a serious reading here today. Here we have the Tower. Ultimately, it has a 7 numerology. And if you take it together with the 2, we have a 9 numerology, which is endings and completion and spirituality and generosity. So there's a sense of finality then. If you're looking at that through the lens of that numerology, there's a sense of finality with this card. Here we have the lightning coming in, which I'm an expert on these days because we've had so much. Oh goodness! And you open the weather app I use WeatherBug, and you open it, and and you just go down a little ways and there's a lightning thing, and you can go to the map and see where it is, and it has where you're located, and you see all this lightning around you. The other day where we had the really bad lightning and the bad, all of it was thunderstorms and all, we're supposed to get it again today too. I mean, it was literally all over us. It was massive, thousands of hits, and it was just scary. I had to stop looking at it because it was so scary. But here you have the lightning, the power of that electricity coming in and blowing the top off the tower. Now, with the 7 numerology, it kind of looks like the scales, if you think about it, with this being the 4 position and this being 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. So you have the scale with the 2 pans. And in a sense, that's a rebalancing of things here. Balancing awareness, balancing masculine and feminine presence within, or balancing perception. You know, the tower is, it's about disruption and catalytic change, positive transformation. With them jumping out, they're letting go. There's a feeling of letting go. And I think that in terms of who controls your fate, if you're not paying attention, someone else can. And this could be a situation where somebody else came in. Obviously, we have an external influence here with this catalytic energetic lightning bolt that's coming in. So something else is causing change, which could be this guy. And it's going to take your inner awareness to catch on to what's going on. Feel the situation. Does it feel like he's trying too hard? Does it feel like he's arrogant? Does it feel like the person in question is just trying to sell you a bill of goods? Because there's some lack of honesty here with this person, and you got to be aware of it. Otherwise, there's going to be a rebalancing of sorts where maybe this guy has some consequences. Maybe it could be that once you know and you walk away, maybe he's so inappropriate, you go to the supervisor and say, hey, I don't know what just happened, but I think I need to tell you about it. You know, it could be something like that. But catalytic change, if you don't pay attention, it could have nothing to do with him. It could have to do with just you. If you aren't able to see what's going on here with the King of Swords, then there could be some very intense change that could happen, some transformation that can happen where you awaken to the real truth of the situation. So one way or another, you get there. It's just how catalytic do you want it to be? Although inner awareness and you have the inner realization, I mean, that can be pretty catalytic as well. It can be very transformative. So it just seems to me that if you have somebody today who is expressing their authority in a way that doesn't feel right to you, that feels dishonest or manipulative in any way, then you need to use your inner awareness to be able to decide what's really going on there. And if you don't feel comfortable, then it's always, if they're wanting something from you or whatever, there's always a chance to say, you know what, let me sleep on it. Or, you know what, I need to step away for a little bit and think about this before I make a decision. Something like that. I need a little bit of time I've listened to everything you've said. I need to let this gel. I need to see how that works for me or doesn't. You know, something like that. You can always pause and take that moment or a while before you make a decision. They wanna salespeople. If it's a sales situation, they want to sell you. They want to sell it right now. Similar thing happened with our youngest son. They were buying a piano and they were looking for one. And the place they ultimately bought it from got a little pushy with them. But, you know, I mean, it all worked out in the end. But it's they think they're about to watch you walk out the door. Well, they were going to walk out because they wanted to think about it. But they're like, no, you got to come back. We can make a deal here. All this stuff, right? And so it's just one of those things where if it doesn't feel right, then maybe it isn't. And so the high priestess being present in this, you've got to find the balance, the inner balance to know which is right and which is not. And the idea of dark versus light, is basically whether or not, the ego is what's at work here, or if it's higher awareness, higher self with this person, and very likely it's ego. And so, again, he may be trying to control the outcome or the per throw of it all. But you need to stay focused, and you need to keep your focus very sharp, and keep it really on the issue at hand, and not allow yourself to be distracted by something that he's trying to get you to understand in a different way, maybe. But he's not necessarily being honest, and so he's going to manipulate. It's like if he doesn't get it this way, he's going to try something else. It could be something like that. I don't like the kings in the court. The only one that maybe I like is the King of Pentacles, but that's even iffy. I just find them to be manipulative. Half of them don't look you in the eye, or there's some other tell, like with the sword being askew, where something isn't right. Whereas with the Queen of Swords, like I said, she's just right there. What you see is what you get. And you better be honest with her, because she's going to be honest with you. I just don't get that with the king. He may possess all those qualities of being analytical and logical and clever and all of that, but that doesn't mean he's an honest guy. This doesn't mean he's an honest broker, if you will. So again, use the inner awareness to define what you're going to do today, and then you can look at the Tower as allowing things to settle out before you make a decision, before things get too crazy. You could look at it that way. That would be in terms of the 7, letting the scales come to a rest. But something tells me that there's some control that wants to take place and upend the situation so that the king remains in control of this. And that could also be a factor. So look at the Tower maybe 2 different ways here. But again, it's something external coming in to blow the lid off of how you see things, you see, and you're going to drop resistance and to that message, basically. So it could, in fact, be that, he represents the Tower, and we already know he's not very truthful, and the Tower's coming in, the lightning bolt comes in and reveals that truth. So it's kind of an interesting reading, especially where fate's involved. Here, this could even be thought of as dropping resistance to your fate. Because you can't do anything about the lightning bolt coming in. It's going to hit what it's going to hit. If you have horses out in your pasture or cows out in your pasture and it's wet, the horses or the cows could get hit. You don't know. I know that happens because it's happened to people in my area over the years where that will happen. One guy we knew that used to cut our hay, there was a real bad hailstorm that we had in the 90s. He was out in it. He had to get under his tractor to save himself, basically, from being pelted by golf ball sized hail, which we never have here. And so, and what happened to animals that were out in the pastures, it was awful. They were all bruised from it. It was horrible. So again, you have Mother Nature coming in and doing something that nobody expects, and there it is, and now you've got to deal with it, as best you can. But I think with the Tower, I don't see it as such a negative. I think it's about revealing truth. I think it's about whatever truth was being compromised here or manipulated. I think it's going to come out. And in the meantime, while you're waiting for that, then you need to be using your intuition to understand what's going on here. But I think that again, you could also look at the lightning bolt as higher awareness coming in and restructuring things and getting people to understand, there's something greater than you, than what your ego's perception is considering here. There's a greater message at work. You could also look at it that way. But again, I think that it begins with this guy. And so there could be somebody today or over the next couple of days where you're kind of feeling like they're not being completely honest with you, and they want something from you, and or they want you to see something a certain way or whatever. And because that would be swords, that would be the air element, wanting you to see things a particular way. Well, that could apply to almost anything. And so let your intuition, let your inner voice guide that, and be ready for something spectacular to happen to reveal things. To me, the Tower is just a card of revelation. I know that it's to me it's, and also of letting go. Letting go of whatever perception you had about one thing or another, and just realizing that yeah, higher self's coming in and transforming things here, so that you don't get yourself in a situation where somebody's trying to hoodwink you or lie to you or get you to do something you really shouldn't be doing, making a choice that you shouldn't make. And so again, whereas Puella is really scattered little girl focus, you want to make sure that your focus is not that. You want to make sure that your focus is very, very intense, and you're paying attention to everything, because that's another way of looking at Puella, paying attention to everything. But you have to do it with intention, and not be led down the garden path by somebody who wants something from you, and maybe not for your best interests. Maybe for his, but not for yours. So again, whether the king is actually referring to a man or not, it doesn't matter. You could have a strong woman in your life that's very persuasive, and tries to persuade you to believe one thing or another when it really isn't true. Maybe she's shading the truth or shaping the truth in such a way that serves her, but doesn't really give you the whole picture. It's only slightly askew, so that it kind of feels like that to me. So again, whether it's a man or a woman, you're talking about a very strong person who's capable of manipulating you into believing what they want you to believe. And your inner voice is there to tell you no. That's the higher self saying, wait a minute, don't, there's more to this. You need to step back, let things settle out, drop resistance to what's going on. Don't get into it with the person. In other words, don't argue with them. Just listen, and let that passive side of self, the subconscious side of self, do the listening, and then take a step back and say, I need to think about this before coming to any conclusion. And if they don't like it, too bad. I mean, it's just too bad, right? You're the one in charge of your fate, not this other person. It's you. And we always have to remember that. Even if we're put between a rock and a hard place and we have to do something that is not good for us, or they're wanting us to, how you feel about that and what you plan to do about that can be within your control. So I think that... but let's not get too far out there on this. Let's just think of this today as somebody that's come into your life that wants you to believe something that may not be exactly true. And you need to use your inner voice. You need to pay attention and not get scattered in your focus on what's going on. Don't let them lead you down the garden path. Don't believe everything that they're saying. Verify it, I don't even know if it's trust, but verify. Just verify. Leave out the trust. And take a step back and let things settle out, and to where you truly, clearly understand the situation. And what you learn from that is it will be likely quite transformative. Either in terms of how you see this person, maybe you start to realize, hey, you know what, this person's been manipulating me for a long time. Say it's somebody that's a friend or a family member or a coworker. This person's been manipulating me for a long time. They manipulate everybody they know. They get them thinking one thing when really it's something else. And you suddenly make that realization, that this person is actually trying to con you for their own purposes. And that can be quite transformative for somebody. And I think the Tower may be, with its 7, letting everything come to rest after the explosion, energy here in the card is really, I think, suggesting. So anyway, I think that's it. That's enough. 3rd time's the charm, right? So. Anyway, everything went out on the blog over at Stepping Aside, and last night, well, in the midnight hour of Sunday morning, went out. The Exploring Tarot Daily Correspondences for Work and Magic, and the week ahead is out. So if you want to check all that out, go there. There's also Who I Am over I'm Wise Woman on Spoutable and Mastodon. There's links to that if you click on more, that box opens and all that. You'll see that. You'll scroll down. The links are at the bottom of that. I'm also on Twitter, but that's just become odd and scary. So, it's like, ooh, I don't think I'm going to look at that. But I'm there. I'm also over on Substack, on Medium, and on Patreon. So you can follow me on those places if you like. What I write, what it's called over there, my page on Substack is called Witch Notes. That's actually a book I wrote. It's a book of correspondences I wrote, but I called it Witch Notes over there. So that's the one over there. It's not called Stepping Aside. It's called Witch Notes. And so look for that. And I guess we'll see you again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.